Okay, so I'm brand new to agriculture myself. So I've been at the University of Delaware for a few years now, but I've been in the College of Health Sciences. And there's certainly a lot of crossover between health and food, but a lot of this is brand new to me. So some of the things that Michelle and Tracy are talking about now, I'm going through myself. So my background, in addition to being in communications, was teaching public speaking at the University of Delaware while I got my master's. And I think that the skills that you learn in public speaking translate directly to talking to media. So I just want to give you some general tips on both of them, like Tracy said, the cliff notes, and see how you could apply it. Not all of you are going to end up on camera, interviewed by paper, but it's more about how we talk about agriculture and how you participate in the conversation. They'll talk a lot about social media, and I'm sure you feel overwhelmed at times on people on the other side communicating, and I think this is just about being a part of the conversation. A misconception about public speaking is I'm either good at it or I'm not. It's not true. It's a learned skill. It's something you get better at, and with repetition you get better and better. So if you were to give a speech, the whole key to success is preparation, and these are 3 considerations that you want to have before you go to speak. One of the things that's going to come along with public speaking is always anxiety, and I'll talk about that fear and how to handle it. But really, the key is how much you rehearse, how much you put into it. That's really going to matter. And these are the 3 things you want to consider. So, audience, and this is the same thing with media. And it's about what does the audience want to get out of it. That should be your goal of the whole speech. Just like when you go to consume a piece of news content, you're there to consume it for some reason. You're not going to consume it if I'm not going to find it engaging, entertaining, useful, educational. There's no point in me engaging in it. Think about your purpose. Why am I presenting to this group? They're calling on you for a particular reason. You're an expert in something. So think about that. What's your desired outcome? Am I here to just inform them, educate them, or am I here to be persuasive about what I'm discussing? And then the occasion, so think about the audience there. Is this industry professionals? Are these people that are knowledgeable about agriculture and crops? Or is this a group that's outside of that? And what Michelle and Tracy talk about, those are the groups that we need to engage with. It's fine to be talking in a room to each other, but it's about telling our story to the outside world. With public speaking, rehearsal is essential, and I see this with faculty members at the University of Delaware. These are veteran scientists. They spend all this time doing the research, right? They put together huge research studies, and then they go to present, and they haven't practiced very much. And what Carmine Gallo, who's a guy I like to read, he's a communications coach for big-time executives. They'll bring him in. He says, if it's a mission-critical presentation, practice it 10 times. And I'm not saying you're going to go do that, but practice 2 times beforehand and see how much better you get. It's going to help with so many things. The best thing you can do, and it's extremely uncomfortable, is to watch and film yourself, because then you can see exactly what you did wrong. And everybody's uncomfortable listening to their own voice, but that's the way you get better. They say practice in front of a mirror, and we all have the smartphone. You can prop that up and watch yourself and get feedback. And then time your practice runs. To be sure about who's presenting after you, timing, all those different things. All right, so Jerry Seinfeld always said that people would prefer, if they were at a funeral, they'd prefer to be in the coffin than giving the eulogy, because the greatest fear is public speaking. I love that bit. But, he's not wrong, and business communications professor at Notre Dame highlights these 3 fears. These are people's 3 biggest fears, and I just want to talk about them and how you overcome them. So, the fear of being unprepared, the fear of being evaluated, and the fear of the unknown. So these are 3 fears that most people have when they do public speaking, and here's what you can overcome them. So, the fear of unprepared, I think the best defense should be pretty clear. It's thorough preparation. The more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. And the first time you're saying the speech out loud can't be at the podium in front of people. The fear of being evaluated, we talked about audience. What is important to your audience? What do they want to get out of it? Not what do you want to get out of it? And then focus on what you can control. It's pointless to focus on things that you can't control. think about what the audience's expectations are, focus on your talking points, what are the main things you want to get out of it, and that'll help you overcome that fear. If you're giving a speech, when do you think people's anxiety levels are at the highest? Any guesses? There's tons of research on this. At the beginning, right before and at the beginning of the speech. So the way you overcome that is you say, okay, there's a pattern here, this is always going to happen. You go through the speech, right beforehand, and you practice the introduction more than the rest of the speech. That'll help get you through it. All right, so now flipping over to working at the press. The reporters are all going to have their individual differences. There's certainly some, plenty of bad apples out there. And we're going to talk about news media versus trade media. But these are just some things you should think about. So learn about who the outlet is and who the journalist is. Some of them are going to have an agenda, yes. So read up or watch some videos that they've done before. Almost all of them are on Twitter now, so you can get a lot of information just from gleaning that. Try to make a personal connection. A technique that an interviewer would use with you if they were interviewing you is they're trying to establish rapport before the interview. So this speaker came in who does radio for NPR, and she talked about when a person comes in, a new guest, I go meet them at the elevator and I walk them into the broadcast room and we talk before that. So they're already comfortable. That's a way to get more out of them. They're going to find you're going to say more interesting things. You're going to have a more relaxed conversation, especially on a medium like radio or broadcast. There's no reason you can't do that right back to them. They're coming to visit your company location, your farm, whatever. You're establishing rapport. You're showing them that you're a real person. And a lot of things that Tracy's going to talk about is, talking about your family. And, it's not just all about yield and profit and all those things. It's the things that matter to all of us.
Dante, one thing I have to ask. Are you ever off the record?
No, that's something I was going to say later. You're never off the record. Just don't assume that you're off the record. And my former boss, who was a PR director for a long time, he'd do these media training sessions to get media spokespeoper ready for things, especially when there were issues. I can't remember if the issue was some kind of political snafu or whatever, but he's in with this woman. She was accused of something, and he's sitting there eating lunch with her before the training starts. And he said to her, so seriously, tell me, did you do it? And she said, how dare you, say it. And she started cussing him. We brought you in to help. And he pointed to the microphone and said, He said, imagine I was a reporter. This could be being recorded right now. So you never assume that you're off the record.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
No.
That's so important because if you're doing the chit-chat beforehand, know that it's not off the record.
And I think number 3 is extremely important. Schedule the interview on your terms. Now, if there is a case where somebody's going to roll up to your property, your place of business, you could say, you know what, we're not available to speak right now. It's not a good time. But could you come back at such and such time, and we'll be happy to speak with you. And I think a big part of our conversation here is just saying no comment doesn't help us. We're not a part of the conversation. So plan it out. Schedule your benefit. You can go through your talking points. For those of you who have organizations with communications teams, they're happy to kind of workshop with you beforehand. So media training and preparing for an interview. It's always important to think, what's in it for me? Like I said before, that's what you're thinking when you're consuming any kind of news content. So think about what are they going to get out of it. That's extremely important. And then when you're preparing your messages, try to really whittle it down. What I like to do is, I guess I'm too competitive, but I'm always ranking things. Ranking them in descending order of importance. What are the 2 or 3 things that I want to get out in this interview? Whether it's news media, trade media, or somebody like me, I'm going to interview people at the University of Delaware, and obviously I'm on their side, but you only can get a few things out. A lot of stuff isn't going to make the final cut. They're going to cut down the information, whether it's video, radio interview, written, whatever. So you're only going to get 2 or 3 things. And then when you get those 3, you need to repeat them over and over and over again. And it's almost like no matter what question you're asked, you want to work those talking points in. And I'll talk about bridging in a second. And then when you're backing up the points that you're making, everybody likes to think about statistics. And, we're a major research university, so we talk about the science. And, yeah, we need to focus on that. And if you're watching a political debate, as an example, they're certainly touting statistics, but that's not all they're doing. A lot of the great ones are doing storytelling. They're giving you examples about how that statistic is relevant, and they're giving you personal stories. They're telling you about somebody they know that was affected by this, or here's what we're doing, in our community. Telling those real stories are so powerful and complement the statistics that you'd be putting out. So, what kind of negative topics do you think you would expect in agriculture communications? I mean, they're going to go through some of them, but what are the things that you guys hear? Whether it's people who have no experience with agriculture and misconceptions, anything we want to throw out. I jotted down a few.
GMOs are bad.
Yeah.
Chemicals are bad.
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
Trifecta.
I love it.
So, yeah, I mean that's a huge one, and this is kind of an exaggeration, but this is what people are saying out there, and the whole point is a reporter may come in with an agenda, and the researching them beforehand really is going to help you. And I like that when I was talking to my students about speeches they're going to give or working with a faculty member. Think about what questions you're going to be asked and be ready for an answer. You can't sit there and be stumped. You have to be ready for an answer. I remember a couple elections ago, Herman Cain was running, if you remember him, and the question was about Libya, and he goes, "Okay, Libya." And then he was just like rehearsing, like, dude, did you not think they were going to ask that question? It was like a headline story in the news. So, if these are some of the big questions, then yeah, you got to be ready for them. All right. So, let's jump to bridging phrases here. So, bridging is basically a way that you get a question. Maybe it's not a question that you like or you feel like you have an answer to. Bridging is just a technique that can be subtle, and it's a way to get back to your talking points in the conversation. And I'm sure you can think of politicians that have absolutely mastered that. So it's a tough question. Fine, answer it with a few words as possible. You say yes, no, perhaps, but you don't just say yes or no. You move on and you bridge to what you're going after. So here are just some ways that there are some examples of phrases. But the way this is going to work is for you to pick ones that work for you. It has to, the speaker, the source, whatever you want to call yourself, it's got to be something that's natural to you. It can't be forced. You can't just borrow what somebody else is doing. And telling the reporter, that's a good question, that's not a bridging statement, right? It's using one of these things and pulling it back to your talking points. So, just talking about news versus trade media briefly. News media, they're going to cast a wide net. It's a general audience. If something is newsworthy and timely, then it can make the cut for their broadcast, their news outlet, paper, whatever. They're not going to be as knowledgeable on agriculture. Trade media, think publications like Modern Farmer, they are going to be, and they're going to be friendlier. They're going to be in the industry. You're not going to have to go at such great lengths to explain the basics because they're subscription-based, their readers, their viewers, whatever, they're going to understand it more. So, you're going to have to do more educating for general news media. But, kind of just a plug, what we're going to talk about is, this is great, the trade media, but that's almost like you're talking in a room to the people that already, get you. This is the group that we need to talk to. The group that has no background in agriculture, they've never been to a farm. That's really the key here.
Yeah, don't assume they know.
So here's just a quick tip sheet. We'll talk about appearance, and then I'll give you some final tips and pass this along. So preparing those short talking points, that's really important, and being able to bridge those talking points. Like, look, I'm going to get these talking points in no matter what this person asks me. No industry jargon. Like a big organization like UD, there's a million terms, and and I can't just say can or CHS. Like nobody knows what that means in the outside world, right? So you have to explain what it is the whole way out, and try to avoid industry jargon. Think that you're explaining it to a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old. How would it come across to them? Try to avoid language suggested by the reporter, especially if you feel like it's a reporter with an agenda. They might play dirty and say something like, how many animals are being diseased by X? Like, you don't want to repeat the word diseased in your answer. You can certainly go the other way if they ask a good question or it's a friendly trade publication and use their language, but don't feel like you're forced into using their language. Use your own words. Definitely pay attention to the background, especially for any kind of photo or video. They're going to show an example later of a woman who works for Cargill, right? Big cattle, and she has the swing set and her family in the background. She doesn't have, some old rusty farm equipment or something like that. So be purposeful about what you're
Big
picking.
Sarah Palin and the turkey. Yeah.
And then, mention your family indirectly. That's what you're doing it for. You're doing it to put food on the table and provide for your family. It's not just about yield and profit and those things. And then purposely choose your attire. And here are just some tips for if it is broadcast or photo. You want to avoid those things, and those are colors that work best. And you do not want to, you don't want to wear red. Pick a color like blue or purple or something like that. And if it is an organization that you work for, branded material is fine. And I also say you want to make sure that you're cluing in the communications, the external relations team that you're doing something like that. And if you don't represent the brand, in an official capacity, I wouldn't be wearing their attire. And then here's the last slide for me, some final tips. I think number one should be obvious, but maybe when pressed, sometimes people say or start to get into an answer that they don't really know the full answer to. Don't make it up. It's okay to say, I'm not sure about that. I'm going to get back to you, or bridge to somebody else who does. I gave the example about nothing ever being off the record. Being energetic, enthusiastic, positive, that definitely comes off on the camera and even in a written piece. And if it's the other side and you're not enthusiastic, people are going to be able to read that. If a reporter asks a question, a lot of times they'll ask the question and then they'll listen to your answer and they'll stay quiet. And they'll stay quiet because we as humans are uncomfortable with silence. So what your mind's telling you to do is to keep talking and talking and talking. It's okay to give your answer, get to the point and then stop. And let them sit on the silence, and then hey, it's your turn to speak now. Don't feel like you have to overspeak.
That's why they have editing equipment.
And honest reporters, there's certainly a lot of good ones out there, but if you get a bad one, look past them. It's not about the reporter, it's about the audience. What does the news audience need to get out of it? All right, and I'm going to pass it along to Michelle. Thank you.
Second slide. Sure. Again, my bad for, so you're going to get the lightning round here of why all this is important. Slide 3. This way. That's right. Good. Can anybody tell me what this is? Or where it was taken? Delaware Ag Week. Kind of like today, this is 3-day long sessions, 4 days shorter sessions. When I cover this is a typical session, about 200 people. They all have their smartphones. Farmers and growers are not technically averse. They use this to talk on the phone, obviously. They use it for cameras, they're great cameras. They use it to check commodity prices, to check the weather. What don't they use it for? They hate social media. I was a receptionist before I'm in my current job, and I can tell you they don't like to leave voicemail messages. They like to come in and talk to the agent. They like to bring their samples in for the agent to look at. They don't want to text a picture. They network personally. And they have a fear and even, I would say, a loathing of social media. They think it's superfluous, they think it's silly, they don't like it, it's unsafe.
But she's converting me.
I'm converting. But these 2,000 to 3,000 people that we reach over 4,000 days, not a single one of them said, hey, I'm here. I'm learning to do what I do better. I'm learning to be a better environmental steward. I'm learning to use and implement IPM or nutrient management practices. I'm not my grandfather's farmer. I'm doing it differently and better. We need to share your stories because the stories are being told and we don't have time. The technology's been very weird today. I implore you to Google
Not even just
Chipotle. I don't know if I can play it. Can we try?
How many have seen the Scarecrow video from Chipotle? If you haven't, please watch it. I can't repeat what I said at the end of watching it my first time.
All right, you're not going to hear the music. That's it. Is it not coming in?
So I want to ask you, even if we're not going to see the whole thing, is look at.
This was an animated video. It received 5 million views its first week. It's gone up to tens to 20 million
Look at the
views.
colors.
It's
Look at the
animated,
faces.
and it shows the story of a scarecrow who's working in a factory farm. There's this beautiful music. It's from Fiona Apple does it, but it's from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Pure imagination. So it's very much geared to children. The scarecrow is going into work, and he's seeing. You'll see a stamp for beefish coming up, but it's very, very powerful. The comments when you actually. Yeah, we'll stop at the chicken. But it goes on and on. The comments on YouTube are, oh, that poor cow. I'm crying now seeing this. And there's beefish, where he's meandering around. Very, very emotionally done. Very well done. I don't like it, but very well. So he peeks into this. Yeah. 5 million was first week.
And do you know this was to promote a video game they created for young people?
All right, that's the big trick. Hypodermic needles, social media, activists, law, we can stuff.
There's even a video on the making of this, the way they chose to do this. I mean, it's amazing, but it's also very scary.
So we need to enter the conversation, and like it or not, people are conversing now on social media. And so this is a hard, tough pill to swallow for some people. This is who I know. When I think of Delaware agriculture, I think of these people. These are people I've met, businesses that we work with. Wholesome, good. This is what social media. This is just a scintilla of the kind of images that they're sharing. And again, they love the hypodermic needle. They love wearing the PPE and the hazmat suits and all of that. You can't trust your food. Screenshot when the U.S. farmers and ranchers polled our audience, what do you think about farming? These are the words that come up.
And the bigger the word,
this is the word associations. We have a problem. We have a real problem with this. So there's a generational divide. Yeah, we're going to kind of skip all this. I grew up, I remember Walfred Cronkite. I'm old enough to remember Walfred Cronkite. It used to be that there was authority. You could believe what the government told you. You could believe what an authority figure told you. Not today. It's all, I'm going to go to my expert, person I believe, person that lines up with my beliefs. So this is the challenge that we have, is that now there's not one or three experts, there's hundreds of thousands of experts, and they're all pushing their agenda. And let's skip this. You have a slide. Sorry, but we're kind of. But the activists are very engaged. They are leveraging social media. They know how to use video. They can crop a very innocent picture of a cow in a pasture and crop it down so it looks like that cow is pet. We all know how cows put their heads through a gate as they're feeding, so they're not interfering with each other. That could be cropped. Look, people think that cows are imprisoned like that because when it's still photo. So we have an enormous cell job to do. They're using guilt, they're using fear. Fear sells, fear works. So we have to get into this conversation in this arena. Having said that, it's very important that these people are not the enemy. There are legitimate reasons to be vegan. There are legitimate reasons to only eat raw food. It's okay to do that. It's when they demonize another form of food production is where the issue occurs. And that's what happens with Chipotle. Chipotle is all about being organic. They're serving Coca-Cola with GMO corn syrup. They're not telling their people that. And they don't rest on their laurels of saying, hey, this is our belief. They have to demonize agriculture for that. And they're just one of them.
Can I jump in real quick on this? In interest of time, I'm going to take my extension hat off, and now I'm the girl who grew up on a farm in Sussex County, and I married a farmer. Okay, if you don't remember anything else, farming is personal. So when people start jabbing at your livelihood, I mean, it's like they're jabbing you. They're saying you stink, you're not doing it the right way. I mean, you take it personal, I do. And I've had to work very hard as a farm girl to get past that part to say that yes, I can still have a conversation with someone who doesn't agree with me. And if you don't remember anything else today, it's we got to find that common ground to even have the conversation. And it's so, so important. Your words matter, but having that mindset of getting past that point is so, so important.
And I went down to an ag communication conference in Atlanta in 2011, and Dan Tolan, who was from the Ohio Farm Bureau, talked about social media. And you can see the body language. The people in the audience were like, one guy says, "You mean to tell me I've got to learn how to do this Twitter thing?" And Dan says, "Yeah, you do. We have to be there. Of all the social media platforms out there, this is the one that I would recommend to you as being the one that would be the most effective for messaging. It's very quick. You don't have to write a paragraph. It's a couple sentences. It can just be a photo. Hey, here's a day in my life. Send that out there, because this is the audience for Twitter. A lot of reporters, a lot of elected officials are funders. The ag industry is extremely well represented on Twitter. Thank you. Here's just a quick snapshot of some of the big players. USDA, almost every extension agent I know is jumping on Twitter, and they're just telling their story. This is what I did today. What you find boring, people are going to find interesting. So, and the following here is 59,000 bare crop signs. Pioneer Seed, 78,000. Ag is America, 19,000. So these have big followers, and you can really get your message out about what you do. This is an example. This is a former plant pathologist. He's moved on to Illinois, but he started, and Nathan got, some of you know Nathan, he got Twitter. He really did. He would go in there and just, oh, here's what I read into today. Here's this disease. Here's that disease. Here's my golf cart getting stuck in the mud.
And who doesn't relate to
Here's
that?
my shoes covered in rust spores. He educated. He was lighthearted. Occasionally he would talk about beer. He was a beer. So you want to be yourself. You want to have a personality. You want people to relate to you. But it's a good way of getting out. And you've got tagging people. But it really makes a name for yourself. And it's a great way, again, heavy use of video and photographs. You can also join Twitter chat. I'm a volunteer or moderator on the National Ag Chat, which is once a month now. So this is a great place to hop on. Again, you're going to be talking, though, to your bubble, to your audience. But it's good to see if you're starting out on Twitter. This is a great way to build your following. And then there's also one called the Farmers and Ranchers Agriculture Network, Fran Happy Hour. So it's just people get on there and they talk about stuff. Usually a theme is set, a topic is set. I've worked on an experimental farm and extension for 18 years. I've never seen any of my colleagues do something like this. Ever. This is on Raw for Beauty Facebook page. It's 325,000 likes. And the message here is, they've got to trust something like that to do their work. It's investigated. This is the kind of information that is going on. People are buying it. Line and sinker. Here's another map. This is called factoryfarmmaps.org. We're ground zero for being factory farms.
And can I throw in, last night we had Andy's project for poultry growers, and we were doing an overview of the poultry industry. Well, they had the dots up where all the farms are. And I said, oh, did you know that I'm going to do a talk tomorrow and there's a photo on there and you're ground zero for factory farms? Even though it says your farm on there, I said you're ground zero for being factory farms.
This is how we're being identified. So we need you to help us set the record straight.
And that's what the factory farm website.
Factoryfarmmaps.org, and it's a .org, which just gives more trust. I'm not going to harp on Chipotle. We all know what they do. It is ironic that they are the ones that have gotten people sick. There's not a single incident or reported incident or statistic that GMO crops have ever made anybody ill or sick. And they even have a TV show. They only ran it one season called Farm to Dangerous again.
And that's another hit piece. Look at that one too.
Yeah.
But remember, if nothing else, all ag is good. In extension, we don't tell you that you need to be organic or traditional, or whatever else. It's your choice. But we also have to realize that even if we have opposing views to other people and have a conversation, all ag is good. All ag, it's your choice.
We can cast a big umbrella. This is an example of a website I saw on Huffington Post, which is a Google leading online paper. It was in 2014. I saw that. I went, oh my God, here we go. Here's the hit piece. I read it. It's actually factual. Surprise. They talked about better grain, better nutrition. They talked about the breeding, selective breeding. I have a Siamese cat. They used to be round-headed down a real narrow triangle. It's you can select a breeding. So they selected a particular breed of broiler for this that responded well. No hormones, and they actually said it in the article. No hormones, no steroids. But their social media person took it because there's different departments. They put it on Facebook, and it's prefaced. Here's the article, the picture populated. The article is accurate, but look how she or he prefaced that. Kind of horrifying, huh? There's something nefarious happening here. There's something scary that's happening here. This isn't quite right. This isn't natural. Well, yours truly speaks up. I have to, right? I took the engaged training that we're all taking, and I had to say, no, it's because of selective breeding, blah, 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 blah. Look at the number of likes this page was getting. This was just like when it first hit, 14,000 likes. Big, huge engagements, shares. If I were social media, I would love that. That's what she was going for, and she got it. So that guy, who has no profile, when I went to check on him, I know he could have been a fake person for all I know. So you can better believe they're injecting the chickens with hormones and steroids. I've seen it. I know all about this. And I'm like, no, I'm trying to do my part. I try to educate. I'm not calling anybody an idiot. I'm not saying you need to be educated, buddy. I'm trying to use my training. This girl comes in and says she actually thinks people are going to leave her community. So they attacked me. I survived. There's another one. She says, well, yeah, look where she works. Of course she's going to say that. She works for the patients. So there's sometimes you just can't convince people. So Tracy's going to talk a little bit about value-based, how you talk to people like that and possibly win them over.
So everybody embrace your touchy-feely side, okay? Those of us in science like the facts, and just talk about the facts. So, but it is so important, and is that when, we all talk to our own bubble. We're all in the same industry here. We have our jargon. We have our words that we use. The people on the outside, they have no clue what you're talking about. So probably, next week's not the greatest time to have a conversation with opposing views. You might have your son or daughter coming back from college, and they might think a little different. You never know. Okay? But, it used to be politics was, divisive. Conversation about ag. I mean, that's kind of scary, and food can be that way now. It didn't used to be. And this is the biggest thing. If you start off telling somebody, well, you're wrong,
I need to educate.
Yeah, you just ended the conversation right there because they're not going to listen. You need to tell them, acknowledge their view, but then you need to find value and a common ground that the two of you can talk about. That's a great point of view. Why do you think like that? Is there blah, blah, blah? So this is very important about the perception and finding that common ground. So
it's the core of
yes,
philosophy.
Engaged training is fabulous. I know Dante's doing that right now. Michelle's taking it. And the biggest thing is values, values, values. We like to talk about the economics, the science, and how much better we're doing things. People don't care about that. What you're doing,
but you have to have that value.
Right. I mean, but to start the conversation, it's about what do you value? Is it safe to feed my children? You can pull that together.
And this, by the way, is about $300 for, was it 10 modules? 5 modules.
I'll take you that one.
Yeah. It's a fantastic training to take if you're going to spend $300 on something. You'll come away with really knowing how to talk to somebody with adversarial views. It's highly, highly
Share us your example as far as where you try to implement our community into their social media world.
Yes, we have a video.
Do we have examples of where it actually works? Is there a positive impact being made from our
Yes,
side?
yes.
Yeah,
Almost
because
like
here's the thing.
our side to their side.
You're not gonna
See this?
influence the hardliners, you're gonna influence the middle part.
This is who we're trying to reach right here.
Gotcha.
No, this is, just don't even go there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just don't even go
But you
there.
try, you make an effort, you know, those 3 people that said, oh, look at her, there were other people that might be reading those comments that may think different, and I've actually seen evidence of, oh, I didn't know that. I wasn't told that, I'm gonna go back and check that out. So I've actually seen that happen live. Yeah, good.
So,
Well, we're gonna skip that.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go to this. Here's the big thing, is
economics.
this is what the farmers talk about, the men on TV
This
will
is
talk about.
science, UD, research, whatever, different
Crop
universities.
advisors.
This is where the general population is. Again, it's all about respect, fairness, truth. If you don't think words matter, words matter. Very quick story, and then I'd like to go to the car deal, but 3 to 5 more times listening if you're showing a share value. I have volunteers. One of them lived in a community that had a homeowner association. They had a small brush pile in the back of their lot for rabbits and other wildlife habitat, right? So the homeowner association comes around and they said, you need to get rid of that. And they tried to explain, oh, it's for wildlife, blah, blah. And they kept saying brush pile. They said, oh no, you got to get rid of that. And as they kept talking, the homeowner representative finally said, oh, you mean that's a thicket? They said, yeah, it's a thicket. Okay, you can keep it. Poultry house, poultry barn. Go for the barn.
So when
Because
you're
people
talking-
want to hear that. You say poultry house, negative connotation.
We've had a
Just
horrible
is.
year. 2018 has been a real terrible
Yeah.
year for farmers. So you get out there and there may be a reporter asking you about how you're handling all the rain or how you're handling all the drought, and you're going to talk about your yields and this and that. But it's important to interject. That you have found that something personal where someone's going to relate to you. Because if they can relate to you on another level, if we're at a yard stand, a farmer's market, she's selling and I'm buying, and I ask her, does this have GMO? Is this GMOs? Is this been sprayed? Because if it is, I don't want it. Then she has to come back to me and say, I see you're interested in the quality of your food. Tell me about your children. I have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. Oh, I have a 9-year-old. So you're making a connection on that level. That once they get to know you, it's like that old adage with the beer. If you can have a beer with George Bush or Joe White, you can sit down with somebody and relate to them on a different level. Then they're willing to trust you about the other items.
And I'll throw in an
Science.
example of my niece. She's grown up in Fairfax County, Virginia. She's sitting at my kitchen table looking out at our field. And she says, Aunt Tracy, does Uncle Jeff spray pesticides on his corn? And I said, well, yes, only if he absolutely has to because the insects are eating too much or whatever. I said, but you have to remember, I said, Uncle Jeff would never put something on there that would hurt someone else. We eat the corn too. Completely satisfied to never say anything else. And that's drawing it in about how you're eating the same food, you're drinking the same water, you know, and making that connotation. Again, during our conversations, what she just said, research proves it's okay, financially it's in our best interest, but this is what most people are going to care about. Sounds like food safety is important to you, like Michelle said. Okay. So, as we talk about feeding the world, keep on going through, because you guys have all seen these, you're in the industry.
Bumper stickers, but people don't care.
Imported food safety, enough to feed the U.S., humane treatment of animals, healthy food choices. Only 29% said they care about feeding the rest of the world. So that's here, and it's not that we can't. We just have to know what is most important to them to do this. If you don't remember anything about this, look, this is the spokesperson. Look what's behind her, like Dante said. Here's a play set. She's wearing purple. This is the best spokesperson. If you're going to choose someone to get in front of the camera, scientist mom, wife of a farmer mother, consumer female, 25 to 40, Michelle and I are out of that. Oprah Winfrey demographics, But watch this video, share this. It is amazing.
And as some background to this, in 2010, there was a bad E. coli outbreak in ground beef, and that happens occasionally. This one was particularly bad. Some poor soul lost her limbs, her arms and her legs, and made news. Press went everywhere. You know, can you comment? We get that sometimes with avian influenza when there was an outbreak in Nebraska, 2 years ago. We have reporters coming down to us saying, what if it happens here? What are you going to do? Are you prepared? Cargill said, you know what? We're going to let you come in and see our plan. And they trained this woman. This was their general manager, Nicole. She didn't come into it naturally, but they trained her on, CFI actually trained her on value-based conversations. And Oprah Winfrey did a whole week-long vegan, no meat challenge. They had Michael Pollan, who's an anti-animal activist, on for the entire week. She
called him an expert and a
rock
rock
star. Called him a superstar. Yeah. She comes in though as that other voice. They did give her the chance, and she was brilliant. Cargill was like elated with her performance because what she did is she used value-based language. And if you listen to the video, you can Google it, Inside a Slaughterhouse. She talks about things like we respect the animal that lived. I don't know if we have time. Let's go through the slides, and if we have time, we can watch it.
Because that's where your words and
it is the gold standard for how to talk to someone who may be trying to angle on a hit piece. And actually, Oprah wanted her to wear red. Cargill, they said absolutely not. That's the color of blood. You wear purple, so she wore purple pantsuit. Unbelievable. She really. So this is what we're doing. This is how we're communicating. We throw something on the back of our bumper and we say that we're showing the world how poor we are. That's not how we have to do it today. So this is the video. Again, we're talking about some suggestions for how to talk about GMO culture. Facts matter. People put reports up that this, for instance, got a lot of coverage, but it wasn't peer reviewed at all. They take pictures.
I've seen videos talking about glyphosate, and the stuff they're showing in the video is so off-label. I mean, it's like, seriously.
So I thought maybe we could do this.
Yeah. The other thing, when you watch the slaughterhouse video, one of the things they talk about is with animal agriculture, many times people have no clue what happens in the slaughterhouse. It can be unnerving for people. They talk about respect for the animal. Nothing goes to waste. They talk about how the cows are not bellowing as they go into the slaughterhouse. They talk about treating them with dignity for the meat that they provide to feed our children. And so those key words are so crucial when you're talking to people.
So what we have here, we could, every 2 tables, or so these, maybe you 3 and you 2, take a look at this and pretend you're the owner of the social media post. You're the owner of this business. You post it down, and you receive the comment afterwards. I'd like you to work in groups and kind of come up with a response. How would you respond to that comment? So you each have something different. We just like to maybe hear some of the feedback. 4 minutes.
Who has the airplane? Which table? Okay. This is my favorite.
These are questions we've actually gotten.
Believe it or not, we did it 3 years ago. There was a person from West Virginia, and they literally had some lady called the cops because it was so wet they had to do aerial applications, and they don't do it that often. And she thought it was an invasion of the country. Okay, so.
But discuss it amongst yourselves. You don't have to write it down, but I'll ask maybe one person to report out. How would you respond to that social media post?
So with this one, if you're an ag, we do this all the time. You wouldn't assume that someone would think we're being invaded. But for someone, you don't know what you don't know.
And using value-based, a value-based response. You want to say, you're an idiot, you're a jerk, get the hell out of my face. That's what you want to say. That's what you want to say, but that's what you can't say.
Oh man.
make sure that I'm not in your face person. I'm not. We really got some of this stuff.
Okay, because we're running out of time. The GMOs, organic versus non-organic. Anybody heard of Common Ground? Okay, this is a great place if you don't feel comfortable talking about GMOs, organic versus non-organic. They have great talking points and ways of talking with the public. The other thing is, I love this book. This is actually for the food side for consumers. Okay, you turn it over. This is the farm side. And Michelle goes through all the great points of how do you talk to people about what you do? How do you make those bridges with the people you're talking with? Connection point 11. Food is an intensely personal choice. It's not our job to tell people what their choices are wrong. It's our job to speak from our side of the food plate and reach across to understand the other side. How are you going to do that? And she just does a fabulous job of going through a lot of the common things we've all been asked or had interactions with, and she does a great way of explaining exactly what you said. How do you make that bridge? How do you make that impact? And this is a great book.
So we'll start over here. Anybody here want to tell us what the post was, what the comment was, and how you responded?
I'll volunteer.
This is always, our chickens are raised on family farms, no added hormones or steroids ever. And the comment is, you guys are liars. And there's someone who works in a poultry farm and he can vouch that hormones and steroids are indeed added all the time. No way will I eat chicken.
The first thing I'll do is say that our chickens are dolphin safe. Those dolphins are filled with chicken.
That's original. I have to say, that's original.
That's pretty good humor.
And you must add, don't forget to add that you love dolphins and you take your children to see dolphins.
Seriously, I'd say come on out to the farm. I'd really like to show you our situation. And as far as the hormones, I think, and I've been doing this 30 years and I'm exhausted, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the above 40 to do Twitter.
Right.
You got to go back to the school.
Hey, I was 52 before I went on Twitter, so there is hope, and I love it. So you can do it. It's actually a lot of
So
fun.
I'd ask the question: have you ever skipped a meal? Have you ever been hungry? You're traveling, and bring it back to, that's what some people experience every day. And if you're hungry, you need to. In France, they don't have this problem because they respect their farmers because they were hungry in World War II.
Yeah.
And we get upset. We drive tractors around Washington.
That's right.
And they get upset. They're so protected. Even the person in Paris, they're so protected of their agriculture. And I think I like to use the analogy. You take pharmaceuticals so easily. You don't question. The doctor says it. Mosquito spray. Here's a chemical we're spraying on ourselves. It's a crop protection. I hate the word pesticide. You said it. Your niece said it.
Yeah.
Right away, you need to change it. It's a crop protection product.
And see, and that's a perfect example of changing it and using different vocabulary.
And one last thing, you got to teach them risk. We've done a terrible job. What is risk? To me, risk is driving down to Ocean City, a foot away from another car, both going 60 miles an hour, or 1 foot, and we're both dead.
Yes.
And I had my sister was a professor at St. Joe's, and she had a party. And as we arrived, there was a woman on a bicycle with her infant, one of those, probably 3 or 4 years old. And we got to the discussion, we talked about organic versus, and I said, and she knew LD50, she has sons, she knew. I said, how many times did a car come a foot away from you and your child driving down the road? And she said, no, that's right.
But you're worried about.
But you're worried about
something. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. We did an abbreviated session because yours truly thought it was one big long session. So But we are available. Our contact information is in the back. If any of you are interested in more expanded training, we have Zoom technology like Skype on steroids, so we can share things. We can go back and forth. We'd be glad to do that for you.
If you want to practice your 30-second elevator speech, you know, the one, like Dante said, the one thing you want people to remember, if nothing else, that you keep going back to. We can help you. I mean, I know.
And maybe you have a persistent problem or a persistent critic, or you're up for a big interview, someone's knocking on your door. We can help you. Maybe how to shape